So mostly I've been like starting off with like how I know, or like how we met, like whoever I'm talking to, but we haven't met. So I guess that's the story with that. I've been fairly aware of like the bands you're like doing currently for like a little while. But yeah, like we haven't met. I haven't really been to a lot of shows in Adelaide. Maybe. Like
there's often not much, to be fair.
Yeah. I think maybe the closest thing is like while Brain Freeze was still a band, I played a few shows with Breakthrough where we did like a few shows with Brain Freeze, but none of them.
Oh, sick! Yeah, they've told me about that.
Yeah, and none of them were in Adelaide even. So, but yeah, like because that makes up most of Humanxerror, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, most of Humanxerror and half of No Peace as well.
Okay, yeah, right, yeah. Well, have you always lived in Adelaide? Is that like where you grew up?
Yeah, man, I've been here my whole life. Yeah, pretty boring.
Never lived like in any other state or anything for a little bit, or?
Nah, not yet. It's a potential plan one day, but just hasn't happened.
Yeah, that's fair. Like when you were, well, how old are you? I guess I'm assuming
26.
Yeah. It's not like much older than me, but I guess those couple of years make up like a fair difference between the kind of bands that you were probably seeing when you first started going to shows compared to like what I was seeing. There was like a lot of bands that kind of would have died out before I started going to shows.
Yeah, sure, man. Yeah, hardcore bands have a really small lifespan a lot of the time, so
especially
you see like a new scene, a new group of people come through very, very quickly.
I was talking to friends the other day about like some of those bands that, I mean, not really like hardcore bands, but like heavy bands in Sydney, like around where that were like big when we were sort of going to shows at the start, that like the kind of people that are coming to shows now that we're meeting like don't even know who those bands are, which is, it's just what happens.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's funny to see. Like, I think the example was I was talking to Nick from Justice for the Damned about like Graves. Like, I don't know if you remember Graves, that like kind of down-tempo-y band. Because like for us, they were like, them putting like Justice on shows was like a big thing that like kind of pulled Justice up by them playing it, and then now people that come to shows in the last few years, Graves just isn't a thing. So
it's weird how that evolution kind of goes in a circle, and like the new generation, most of the new generation of like music scene won't really look back at previous bands.
Yeah,
they'll just kind of see what's in front of them, which is fine. But I've always been a fan of everything to do with the scene, Yeah,
I was really the same. Like I ended up having a lot of older friends. Like I have lots of like mates that are, like 25, 26 up to like 30 and like 30 plus.
Yeah, same.
And like, I guess from them telling stories, and also me just like when I was first trying to find new bands, like you're just going through like Facebook pages that have like flyers, and you're like, and like half the time I'd be like, oh, this band's sick, and like listening to this, and then someone would be like, oh, they've been broken up for like 2 years. It's like, oh.
Yeah, and you get that like moment of like heartbreak where you never get to see that band again. It fucking sucks.
Yeah, fully. And it sucks when like a band does like the last show or whatever, like in a different state or some shit like that. It's like not a local band, so you never get to see like the last shows unless you have the money to travel.
Yeah, it's probably what makes this special though, right? Is that it is final and things do end.
Yeah, it makes it like it's a super personal kind of genre, I think, because like there's so many bands that probably only matter to like 20 or 30 people, but they like really matter to those people.
They mattered a lot.
Yeah. Well, I guess what sort of bands were like big, or like were you heaps into like when you first started going to shows in Adelaide? Because I don't know a whole lot. I mean, I know like Shot Point Blank, and that's kind of like where like that's mostly like the main thing I know. Like there was a band called Cold Front that was around, I think 2016 or something. That was like one of the first bands that I heard of from Adelaide that I liked. And then obviously like Shot Point Blank are like older than that. Like I never saw them.
Going back further,
I never saw them, but I've
No, I never saw them either. They did a reunion show, I think in Melbourne, like 2012 or 13 or something.
Yeah,
maybe that was Day of Contempt, but those bands do these reunions, but they just kind of like happen and then disappear and
and go away. Yeah, because I was curious.
As far as bands go, like that I got into when I first got into hardcore in Adelaide, The Wait were probably a big one. I never actually got to see them.
Okay.
But fucking love their records. Amazing band. Like worth checking out everything they've done.
Was that kind of like that youth crewy kind of stuff that you like sort of play now? Or is it like
no, less youth crewy. There's not much of that in Adelaide at all. I'd probably put The Wait more in a style similar to, say, like Buried Alive a little bit. Most Precious Blood.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That kind of. Were they an edge band?
I don't think so.
I don't know. Yeah, I just because
a lot of the guys, or a few of the boys in that band, were straight edge. Actually, when I think about it, I don't think they were an edge band though.
Yeah. Was that kind of like a thing then? Like, I guess now most people are kind of seeing, like, the most stuff I see out of Adelaide is like kind of the shows that you're doing and like those bands, and it just comes off as predominantly edge. But I feel like from what I know, that wasn't like a massive thing always, like in Adelaide, or it's still not even now. But like what's happening is kind of edge, like bass.
It's funny. It seems like that, but my experience is when I got into hardcore, say like 2010, 2011 is when I really kind of found it and started to go to local shows and discover bands that were locals.
Yeah.
Those bands and that like generation, there was barely anyone that was straight edge. Like it was dead. There were obviously like older guys that kept it going, but there weren't many at all going to shows. And even now, like I know a lot of guys that are straight edge, but I reckon in the whole of Adelaide's hardcore, there's probably like 20 or 30 dudes total.
Yeah.
So it's not big at all. But going back like 20 years, man, Adelaide had, as far as I know from like my history of things, I'd like the biggest straight edge scene in the country.
Yeah, right. I think just as a whole, like it's kind of like straight edge kind of dropped off a bit, like kind of everywhere, and there was like, you know, a few older people and like not many like younger ones, I guess, because it wasn't sort of a part of the music for a long time. I mean, like there wasn't a lot of straight edge bands anymore. I feel like the scene got old as well. Like a lot of people were growing up, and then a few people dropped off, and there wasn't a lot of like younger kids, and therefore not a lot of people. Like,
that's something I've noticed with Adelaide, especially. Is there's this like big deficit between the early 30s hardcore kids and like the early 20s.
Yeah.
Like there's no one really in between that's taken over and tried to develop the scene and tried to give it life and continue it and like carry the torch. It kind of just like died and disappeared.
I grew up on like the south coast, like in New South Wales, so like Wollongong and Sydney, and then I live back there now, and like there's only like 2 bands that I know of that are any younger than me, and they're still only like 20 now, which is like, when I first met them, you know, they were like 17 and 18, but I never see that anymore. There's no like 17 or 16-year-old kids. I know one like skinhead like punk kid that's like 16. He's sort of like starting to do some bands, but there's not as many as I felt like there was before.
Everything comes in waves and goes in fucking like not trends, but you know, that waves. That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
Things pick up heat, they get more popular, people will get into it and then maybe get out of it. But what I'm noticing in Adelaide at the moment is there is like this younger generation of kids that are coming through that are like 17 to 20 that are fucking loving hardcore, and they're getting into it and actually trying to create stuff as opposed to spec stuff for free, you know. They actually want to be a part of a growing creative hardcore scene, which is so fucking awesome.
Yeah, I think actually last night I was talking to some of my friends, and they kind of brought up like the Adelaide thing, like, and just saying how, you know, like doing the shows in like the skate park and stuff is cool, and they want to see more of that. And we were just talking about how like you just kind of have to do it, like someone has to do it, so like we have to do it, otherwise it's not going to happen. And I think that's basically exactly the mentality that you have, because I guess you've just done it because no one else is doing it.
Yeah, that's 100% where it's come from. Like, there's bands that maybe like at the top of like the heavy music scene here in Adelaide that maybe don't quite deserve the position they have, right?
Yeah.
And not like pointing any fingers, but they don't give back. They don't give platforms to anyone below them. They just kind of take.
Yeah.
You know, so the frustration that I had for the last, say like since I started Allxin in 2016, like that band hasn't really gone anywhere great, but we've done some cool stuff. But the frustration that I've had trying to set up shows with them just getting rejected because we're not like the cool sound, or we're not what's in like popularity or whatever. Like that's not what it's about. It should just be about everyone coming together, playing their best style, trying to create like a inclusive community where everyone had a platform to create and be heard.
We sort of brought up that last night too when we were talking about how like having like the internet has kind of affected that in a way that, you know, like how many followers and stuff kind of like tends to dictate how people like book shows on purpose and stuff. And it's like when like we started going to shows, like you didn't even need to have like social media because it was just everyone would just book whatever bands were playing or they could play to go and see them. There was no like
exactly that, like in so many ways that was healthier. Whereas now you get bands that are like, they record everything digitally and then they release everything fucking digitally and then they play one show and they think they could fucking like rule everything and take over. It's like, you haven't earned shit, man.
I think that it kind of came like with the kind of, you know, digital production and stuff, like everything got more polished and then everyone felt like they had to act more polished and like and it kind of turned into like, it kind of cut out a bit of like the DIY stuff of hardcore,
the rawness that makes it special.
Like I mean I still see it a lot in like more like punky scenes and like crusty stuff like over here, but like in, you know, like the hardcore, like heavy hardcore bands that are like, I guess more on the kind of the trendy thing, like they don't want to go and play in warehouses and stuff, or like they're not at least making it happen, which I think sucks.
I agree, man. I think Peter Bordy, who is one of the older guys who played in like all these fucking sick bands, he taught me probably like, I think we had a conversation say last year sometime about playing in different places and trying to play different lineups and trying to take your music to places that have never had it before. So he taught me that, and that's something that I really want to push now, is like play a random fucking skate park or like play in a random town like outside of the CBD, like do something different. That's it's important.
I think there's like, I get upsides of both things where like you want to play to like crowds that, you know, get what you're doing and stuff, but you also have to take the risk of like, you're not going to pull anyone in. You're not going to pull anyone in by not playing to them.
Totally agree. And it's like, it's that classic argument of like, you don't want to preach to the converted. You want to show people that have no idea what hardcore is, or no idea like the ethics and everything we kind of value and stand for in our music. You want to show people that have no idea what this is, you know?
I think that's another thing, like with straight edge, and like I guess generally in hardcore, like straight edge is always tied into like veganism or like just general animal rights stuff. And like I think just generally it was a good thing either way, but it kind of influenced a lot of people to do things that were like ethically cool that like they might not have thought about before. Like I know, like, watched heaps of stuff about like older dudes that were like vegan for like 10 years. They ended up like, you know, like breaking or whatever later, but like that's still like that period where they were like listening to, you know, like Earth Crisis or something, and like we're just like, this is sick, I'm gonna do that. Like even if it's just that, even if it's just them being influenced by bands they like, I think it's still kind of a cool thing that, you know, it's influencing people to do something that's healthy or like good, whether
and that's what makes this special. It's what makes hardcore special, is that it's not about anything fake, and it's not about anything like consumerist based, you know. Like we kind of want to do our own thing. We want to stand for our values that we think are so important. There's meaning to it and there's purpose to it. That's the biggest thing for me.
It's funny, like trying to function in like the kind of real world, like after that, like after being such a DIY kind of person. I remember like I've been doing I started a business a little while ago doing like bootleg merch, you know, like old stuff that you can't kind of get, just like doing remakes of stuff. And like, you know, I'd message my mate and being like, you know, like, is this too much to charge for this shirt, you know, like whatever. And he'd be like, man, like my mate's brand sells like basic like tees for like $40, like you're fine. And like, we were just thinking like, you know, I guess it's our sort of culture as being like really DIY. You don't want to take money from anyone, you know, like unnecessarily, exactly. And it's like, you know, I guess like, yeah, it's functioning in like the real world where like it's like just take as much as you can get and, you know, give as little as you have to, which is
no, and it's the complete opposite for us. Well, for the people that, like, I feel like you and I probably share that like theory and that belief quite closely, but I feel like a lot of people are maybe very slowly coming around to that within our scene, whereas like going back, say, 4 or 5 years, it was quite the opposite, where they wanted to maximize their profits to get that, like, I want to make this serious, I want to make money.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I just don't think you can ever really... at grassroots levels, you can't really make money off of hardcore, and that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the latest No Peace shirt that we did.
Yeah.
It's a sick shirt. Like, it's got a front print, it's got a back print, it's got colour. It's like a dream shirt that, for me, like, I love it. It costs like $29 per shirt to make, and we sell it for $30.
Yeah.
So it's not about the money, it's about got the message on the back, it's about the band, and it's about what we all love.
It's like, it's also like making it accessible to people. Like, you could essentially charge enough money to make a profit off it, but like that also kind of takes out, you know, like a chunk of people that can't afford like a $45 shirt or
straight up,
which I think is like what I kind of felt the same thing like with doing like bootlegs. Is like, I want these to be accessible to people like me that don't have a lot of money. Like, so I do my best to keep it in like a ballpark where we're both, you know, benefiting.
Yeah, exactly. And I would rather have 40 shirts sell and know that they've gone to 40 people that are into fucking hardcore and going to rep it, than sell 20 shirts and make a profit. Like, I'd rather break even but have that, like, that legacy, you know, like build that legacy with the band. And
bands that like that maybe were less successful but hold like more place in people's hearts and like just a better thing. I feel like it's sometimes unfortunate when like those bands end up being like super popular later on, like after they're finished or after the band members are all like, you know, doing other shit, but you know, it's still cool that it exists.
I think a really good example of that, of like a super important band that during their active years weren't given the love they deserve, is Homesick.
Oh yeah, fully.
From Sydney.
Yeah, Sydney
that band. They are my favourite band to come out of Australia.
Yeah.
Ever.
It felt like they had like something, like it felt like it was doing fairly well, but then it kind of dropped off and like they ended up like breaking up and stuff.
Fun fact, I tried to get them to come play the All In 5th, the All In 5th year anniversary show this June.
As like a reunion. Like
just gone.
Yeah.
And that's when they broke up.
Oh, true. Okay, yeah.
So I was like, fuck, I've killed my favourite band. Fuck.
You killed them. I thought
maybe there was more going on.
They must have just been inactive. I thought they'd broken up like a little bit before that, but maybe they must have just been a bit inactive. Yeah,
they were inactive because they were writing for a new record. They had these 6 songs that they'd shown me some stuff before, and then I was like, this is going to be the fucking coolest shit ever. You guys should come play this 5-year anniversary show with All In and No Peace and like all these LA bands that they played with, and they just broke up.
Yeah, it sucks. I think I don't really know any of them personally. Like, I met them once or twice. I think we played together like a million years ago once. But if I'm not wrong, I think one of the guitar players is doing the band Joy. And then I think I was talking to one of the dudes the other day, like doing like a completely different kind of project. I don't think it's out or anything. So I'll just say that they're doing something, which is cool too. Like,
yeah, well, on a low key, like with Pete, the vocalist for Homesick, him and I are doing like a little punk project that we're trying to put together, but it's Sydney had that massive lockdown for fucking ages, so
yeah, that was really tough. That was no fun. It was like just after shows had kind of come back a little bit too. Like
they had that window.
Yeah.
And then it was like, hey, here's a show. Oh, too bad.
Yeah. Because like I've since I moved back to Sydney, I've been like semi-permanently playing bass in a band called Underminer, like this kind of metalcore band, and like we did, and I filled in for another band that opened. It was like the Justice headline tour, like they did the coast, and I helped out my mate's band in Brisbane, and then I played like 2 shows at like Newcastle and Sydney. And it was sick. It was like everything was like back to normal. Like I played 3 shows in a weekend or whatever, and then it was like immediately after that, it was like nearly 4 months of staying inside.
Far out, man. It's been crazy.
Yeah, and I've been like, I mean, like sort of good in a way. Like it helped me focus on stuff because I wasn't so busy, but it was also hard. Like I've been working on like a new band, like a hardcore band with some mates for a while now, and it's like now we just want to like start, like, you know, play a show and stuff like that. It's an edge band too, which is exciting because I've never got to do an edge band.
That is awesome because, well, I love it, but at the same time, fuck you guys, because Humanxerror was claiming that we were the only straight edge band in Australia. That was our thing.
Well, maybe we'll have to do a tour or something. We'll have to do
only straight edge
bands. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, but that'll be exciting. I haven't, because I've done, when I was in Melbourne, I played drums in like a band called Blood on My Hands, which was like kind of metalcore and stuff, but like they'd already existed.
They're a pretty new band, yeah?
Like they'd done like a demo and stuff, but it's like since we did the record, which was maybe like probably 2 years ago now, but since we did that record, that's kind of when people like sort of noticed a little bit. It's like still fairly fresh, yeah. But they're, you know, like they already had their sound and stuff, and I was just moving down and joined. Like I haven't started a band like with like an intent and like my sort of, you know, what I wanted to do for a while, like for a few years.
Yeah, it's so special when you can sit down and be like, this is the band I want to make.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to do it? And your mate's like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, it's special. Really cool. Yeah, so I'm excited for that. I guess, well, how did you end up doing like your bands? Was Humanxerror sort of like that, or like, because I feel like you've along the way, just the vibe I got from just like looking at the bands is like you're just like, yes, I'll do this band, yes, I'll do that band, just because like you want bands to exist.
Yeah, and more or less, like everyone makes jokes because I only listen to hardcore, which is pretty much true. Like I'm weird. I just listen to hardcore.
Yeah.
But that means that like I get into the subgenres of hardcore like really heavily, right? So like melodic hardcore or youth crew hardcore or more like straight up fast hardcore.
Yeah.
Or metalcore, like straight edge Archangel style metalcore from the 90s. Like I'll find these subgenres and I'll be like, there's no bands doing this. Why aren't there bands doing this?
Yeah.
So then I'll like start a band.
Yeah, sick. Yeah, I have the trouble of that too. Every time like I listen to a genre for a while, I'm like, all right, I gotta do this.
Yeah, straight up. That's exactly how I feel. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not alone.
Yeah, like I've accidentally ended up in doing like too many of like the same genre a few times. Like I was in Breakthrough for a bit as well, and then like, you know, moving to Melbourne and then doing Blood on My Hands at the same time, and it was both of them were that kind of like 90s metalcore, like panic chord, like stuff, and then like, you know, I love that stuff, but I was like, I've like taken up 2 of the slots that I have to be in bands by doing the same genre.
Do that. Yeah, that's where like at the moment I'm kind of expanding into a bit of like 2000s punk, like Pennywise, Anti-Flag, Ignite.
Yeah.
And that's fun. Like I enjoy singing and playing the guitar for that kind of stuff too, so that's enjoyable to do, but nothing will get me going like hardcore.
Yeah. Like what the stuff that you mentioned before, like that like 8000 kind of like Belgium stuff, it's really sick. That kind of like metalcore hardcore stuff, that's some of my favorite.
Man, there's something that happens when Europeans get a hold of like American music.
Yeah.
They just fucking like kill it, man. Like in a good way. Like they make it better.
They had some wild shit going on in Belgium. They just had their own little thing.
Yeah, straight up. Even like Germany, in like Berlin and Dresden and those like kind of like eastern German cities, like they have a sick hardcore scene there.
Yeah, right.
Real cool. There's some amazing bands.
I think there's a shirt that I think it was like at a Lair Fest a couple years ago. They had like a merch bin thing, and I grabbed this shirt for like a couple bucks. It was a band called Eye for All, which was I looked them up, and they were like from Sweden or something, which was interesting. Like some like Swedish edge, like just hardcore band.
Yeah, sick.
Which I love, like, you know, kind of diving for that sort of thing. Like it actually took me ages to even find the EP. It was on like, you know, YouTube somewhere. And then
that's
like
the coolest part about this music, man. You have to earn it.
I was doing like the research too, because I was like, how did this even get here? Like, I think it was like a 2004 demo in like Sweden. I was like, who bought this shirt? But apparently the dude who was one of the guys that was in the band moved to like Perth or something, like that was in Sweden or something, moved to Perth, and then must have like brought a shirt with him, and then eventually sold the shirt or whatever, and then it's ended up, you know, at like Lairfest in 2019 or something, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. It's such a cool thing that I feel like hardcore has this in a really special way, where there'll be these little bits of historical hardcore facts that no one gives a fuck about. But when two hardcore kids talk about it, we're like, holy shit, really?
Yeah. Just watching clips of like, you know, shows that are like terribly filmed on like VHS cameras and like the
audio is terrible.
Yeah, but you're like, holy shit, like, did you see that? Or like, that's that guy before he did this band, and it's
exactly. Yeah, there's this history of the scene that is just so special to us. If you're into it, you get it.
I find a lot of like the kind of like the New York stories really funny, like all that like kind of silly beef and stuff that a lot of bands had. You know, everyone like, you know, having like fights and stuff all the time, those stories. It was funny, like
New York is hectic, man.
Those like
their hardcore scene, all the stories of bands and the shit they used to get up to is crazy.
Yeah, like a lot of them were just like legitimate like scary dudes, which is you know, it's an interesting scene. Like, I guess, I mean, there's still scenes like that out there, and there's like bands that do that sort of stuff, but like how it's kind of progressed, you know, how it's changed and how many scenes have happened, like, because that would have been like, it's around the same time when you had that other stuff, you know, and like even the music's not that hard. Like, I guess it's funny to look back on now, like, you know, bands like Madball or whatever, like how they were like scary, you know, like intimidating dudes.
They were
like,
considered the tough guys at that time. Like, everyone else was playing like punk hardcore and like Bad Brain style hardcore punk.
Yeah.
But then Madball are like, we're tough. We're the strong boys.
Even like Judge, like they got a Judge shirt.
Yeah,
on, like,
Judge, great example. Yeah.
I loved that little doco they did about, like, you know, the kind of image that they got, and and then they just bailed and just disappeared. Yeah, just fully disappeared. Until 2016 or something. Yeah, the doco is really good. Yeah, really, really cool. Yeah. I got to see Judge in Germany in 2019, and that was the best show I've ever been to, I reckon. Yeah, it's sick. I heard something the other day.
Very cool.
I was listening to some podcast or whatever. This dude that used to take photos, and I'm pretty sure it was this one. I think he was saying that the cover of, what's it called? Is it Bring It Down? Like the one.
Bring It Down?
Yeah. Apparently the photo's not even of Judge. I think it's like a different band. Like,
oh no shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, me neither. That some dude was like saying he took the photo. I can't remember what I was listening to, some like podcast or whatever. He's like, oh yeah, I was taking photos a bunch at the time, and I think the cover's not even Judge. Like, I remember taking the photo. You know, like when everyone used to do the shirts with like the fisheye camera, and the vocalist is like always handing like the mic to someone in the front.
Oh, those are classic, man. I fucking love those.
You'll have to bring it back. Have to do one.
That's what No Peace is trying to do. Every shirt, well, we've done 2 shirts, but both shirts have had a live shot with that kind of vibe on it.
Yeah, sick.
We've got some better ones from that Hurricane Fest show we just played.
Yeah, that'd be sick. Like, you're booking those shows, like the skate park shows?
Yeah. So just make it happen. Like, no one else is doing it. Like we were saying before, I'm not going to sit around and wait for shit to happen, because it just won't. So it's a case of like create the change you want to see, you know? Yeah.
I'm assuming it's not, I mean, just from the way like the flyers are laid out, you know, like ask someone, like it's
definitely illegal.
Yeah. Which was, I was saying, like, I won't ask you like where it is or anything, because it's just, you know, safer not to. But like, did you just sort of have a look around the city and was like, this could work, sort of, for places to go, like to do this sort of shows?
No, I got the idea. There was an old so you know, you've heard of Clarity Records?
I I think so.
It's a record store in the city. It's like it's Adelaide's like go-to record store. It's fucking awesome.
Okay.
The guy who owns, the family who owns it are the Horvats, and Matt Footy, he's been in some amazing bands over the years. He's mad into hardcore punk. But he used to play for a band called God So Loved the World. And they're like, think youth crew style hardcore, but more in the vein of like early 2000s punk hardcore.
Yeah, I've seen them on some posters and stuff, but I haven't. I never.
Definitely worth listening to. Really, really fucking cool. But they had their last show, like the final show, at West Beach Skate Park, which is where we do Hurricane Fest.
Okay.
It's not a secret. Everyone knows it's there.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, they had their last show at West Beach Skate Park, and apparently like that was like an iconic show for Adelaide hardcore, and there was like over 300 people there, and it was crazy, and they played like down in the bowls where we were. So I kind of I was inspired by that, and I just stole that idea.
Yeah, sick.
Like, it's worked in the past. It's a free public space where we can have an all ages show. It's in an open area, so if you don't want to get in the pit, you don't have to.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people like standing up.
Yeah, it just kind of worked really well.
Yeah. Is it like far enough away from like a residential area that you haven't really had much trouble with people?
Yeah, so it's, if you ever come to Adelaide, you've got the CBD, it's like a big square.
Yeah.
And then as you go west towards the beach, you've got Adelaide Airport. And West Beach Skate Park is just behind like the runway of Adelaide Airport. So through the sets, we'll have like massive fuck off planes landing. It's fucking sick.
Yeah, I've been through Adelaide Airport a handful of times. Like I've got my grandparents on my mum's side live in Adelaide. So I've been there, but I never really got to. I've played maybe one or two shows like filling in for bands in Adelaide, but I think it was the same venue that I played. It was like I can't remember what it's called. You kind of go up like some stairs, and there's like the stage is kind of like rounded, and then there's like kind of like a bar area. I think it's a bar or like a something.
Enigma.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, it's a classic spot.
But yeah, that's really the only places I've been is like my grandparents' house and Enigma bar.
And Enigma, yeah. Terror played, usually when Terror tour Australia and I play Adelaide, they'll play Enigma, and it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Real cool shows.
I think you kind of semi-answered the question by telling me like when you started going to shows, but I was curious if that Instagram page, the Adelaide shows, if that was you. But I'm guessing it's
not me.
Because I was looking through some of it and I was like, I wonder if that was you. But that's like some good stuff.
I know who that is.
Yeah.
But I can't be the guy that divulges that.
Yeah, you don't no need to out.
I'm pretty sure I know who it is.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Because there was some crazy ones on there. Like I was looking through it like the other day just to see if there was anything else I remembered that I knew about Adelaide. But like one of the first ones on one of the first posts was like a flyer that has Shot Point Blank playing above Parkway Drive, which is pretty wild.
Yeah,
like
insane, right?
Yeah. Would you have been going to shows when Throwdown toured here?
No, that was before my time. I fucking wish.
Yeah,
they played where we organised Allxin's 5-year anniversary show at the Irish Club.
Yeah,
that's where Throwdown played.
Okay.
And it's a massive room, man. Apparently, like, massive amount of people rocked up, and that was at the peak of when, like, straight edge was big in Adelaide, according to what I've been told by my automates.
Yeah.
And it was just insane. Apparently, they, like, destroyed part of the floor in this Irish Club place, and the Irish Club haven't had shows there since they let my show back, which is funny.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Like I haven't really, like the whole like Adelaide straight edge, because I know it was a very different scene, but I know Brisbane had like a pretty big like straight edge sort of scene, but it was more like the War and stuff like that. Those kind of like more metalcore bands, and it was a bit more like ignorant as opposed to like political.
Straight edge people being ignorant? Never.
I really enjoy that kind of like I have like a massive love for like the kind of Seventh Dagger Records kind of era of like edge, like mosh. So I can definitely understand it. I think that's pretty much what they were doing.
Oh yeah. That's the thing with straight edge in general is like you've got these two opposite sides of it, where it's like one side is super militant, and they're usually the younger ones.
Yeah.
And then the other side is the more chilled out, like, I don't give a fuck what you do. Straight edge is about me.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're usually the like middle-aged, older ones. I've found there's not too many guys like my age that are straight edge.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of it kind of tends to be about the age where you kind of either drop off or like stick to it.
Yeah, and that's it, man. I find you get to a point where like you figure out if it's for you, and if it's something that you're doing for yourself, and you're really sincere and genuine in that belief. And you got to question it as well. I've questioned it to a core. But yeah, you either figure out if it's for you, or you find that point where you're like, it's not for me.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough. Like, everyone makes their own decisions, and I understand that. Yeah, cool. All right. I think just because we were doing the video chat for however long we were doing it for, my phone's overheated, and it's like error warning thing.
Yeah, it can get a bit much for him. It's been like 45 minutes or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've got a bloody S21 Ultra, so you'd think it would be like baller.
So yeah, I was saying that I was curious what there's this, I can't remember what band it was in, but there was some photos of you guys like playing in like this tiny little like looks like a storage shed or something. It's like super skinny, and there's like,
yeah, I reckon that was all in.
Yeah, I was just curious where that was, like if you did that show, like booked that show or whatever.
Yeah, it was just at our singer's house, so it was his garage.
Yeah, right, that's sick.
It was just all in. We had like 30 of our mates over and just have a bit of a sing-along and a mosh.
Yeah, that's sick. Do you remember like when you like claimed Edge, or how long you've been sober before you claimed Edge and stuff like that, or if you just kind of backlogged it?
No, I've never really drunk anything. I had a sip of Dad's beer when I was a fucking 12-year-old.
Yeah.
He poured it over my ice cream, so I kept annoying him, and I was like, no, Dad, I fucking hate it. I'm never touching beer again.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. That's a good story.
But yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, I reckon he was smart. He was like, I'm going to get you off of this before you start.
Yeah, before it even happens.
Ruin your ice cream. Yeah, so I've never really drunk anything at all. I think I found straight edge when I was like 13, maybe like year 8, so 2008.
Yeah.
But I didn't really claim it until I was like a bit more confident when I was like in year 10, I reckon. So 2010 is when I probably like properly claimed it, but
yeah. So
yeah, never really done anything then.
So you would have been about 17?
What was I? Nah, I would have been 15.
Oh, okay, right. I was trying to think like how old you are in like year 10. But yeah, okay. Yeah, so
2010 was when I was in year 10, so yeah, I think I've been Edge for about 12, 13 years. Like, I kind of backtrack it to when I first like heard of it back in year 8.
Yeah. Because I guess...
Like, realistically, man, I didn't really like come out to everyone until I was like year 10, so...
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm straight edge now, that's all that fucking matters.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just like curious sometimes, like I don't meet like a lot of people that have been Edge for like a long time. Like I've met a few older dudes that have been... It was funny, like I met a bunch of dudes in the same day, like through other people, that like as I just talked to more people that day, like the oldest, like longest Edge people I met like went up and up like 3 times. It was funny. It was like I met one dude that had been Edge for...
funny as.
Yeah, met one dude that was been Edge for like 20 years, and then I was chatting to this other guy and he'd been Edge for 24 years, and then I chatted to another dude and he'd been Edge for like 30 years. So it was like all in a row.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty sick. I guess it's cool, like meeting other people that are Edge, especially people that are older than you. Because like I went through so like I've been Edge for about 6 years. And I was like 17.
Yeah.
And like most of the time that I've been going to shows, like my mates were all like super duper not Edge, like not anti-Edge, but definitely doing drugs
Yeah,
and getting smashed. And like, so it didn't feel super like communal for me. Like I was, like I've only now have like edge mates. So yeah,
I feel that as well, man. Like I think because I discovered it by myself, I didn't really have any other outside influence being like, you should be straight edge. So I think I maybe similar to yourself, like we've come to it from a point of view where it's just us discovering this and us latching onto it and us realizing that it's something we want to do and be. So it's probably a bit more sincere than say the people that have discovered it through friends or through older guys who they just want to like live up to or something.
Yeah, like we were saying with like, there was like the huge trends like when Earth Crisis were like real big, like there was a lot of people that kind of, like not that it's necessarily always a bad thing, but like bandwagoned on like straight edge and veganism and stuff.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
That's an interesting thing that you brought up. Like, I mean, I find that with bands a lot too, and like just the music people like, when you like, I mean, obviously like Adelaide's not rural, but like people that grow up sort of in the middle of nowhere and stuff and find all the music they enjoy.
That way.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, like I've been to Adelaide, it doesn't feel super city-ish. Like I guess it's still like one of the kind of major cities, but it doesn't really feel that way. But like there's something that I find super interesting about people that find stuff on their own. Like they know about all this music because they're just a nerd and like deep dive YouTube and like whatever just to find stuff that they like.
Yeah, they've discovered it themselves.
Yeah. It's like people that are there for like,
I think there's a lot more sincerity and a lot more like genuine love for something when you discover it yourself and when you actually realize like, this is something for me. Like you get right into it and you live and breathe it, and it's not like a sense of like, oh, my friends are doing this, so I guess I'll join in.
Yeah.
And then as soon as your friends stop doing it, like you bail. Like, I feel like bringing that back to like straight edge and being into hardcore and stuff, I've never felt that way because none of my friends back then were into this shit. Like it was just me discovering it by myself.
Yeah, 100%. It's
having said that though, like I do have some older mates that I looked up to like a lot back then that were really good influences to kind of just nudge me in the right direction towards hardcore. And like realize like, oh, Jesse's got that type of personality, like he might like this. And then they would show me like one band and I'd be like, this is unreal, like can you show me more? And then I'd like go and discover shit myself. So
I mean that like most people I think have like that entry point, like because like I had like I guess like I love hardcore, but I was also like kind of like a metal guy like first, like when I was in high school and stuff. And like I had like some mates that were like a few years older than me that like lived near the high school I went to, and we'd go and hang out and they'd lend me CDs and shit. And then like because without like someone showing you at least that one band, you can't find other ones. Like you can't track down the shirt that they were wearing or like the label they were on without at least knowing one, or like having an entry point. And I think that's super important, like those people. That's why like it's super important to like show people stuff, like whenever you meet anyone. Like I think anyway, I mean I can't help it, I just like meet someone and then I'm like,
represent what you love.
Yeah, I love sending people music that I think they'll like. That's like one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, it's special. Yeah, I totally get that, man. Like live with your heart in your sleeve, represent what you love, and you'll attract people that share that mentality and share that love and passion for what you're doing. And that's something that I've noticed these last, say, like 2 or 3 years in Adelaide. Is I'm just doing my thing, being myself. People identify with that and they want to be a part of it, or they don't, and that's it.
It feels like people are embarrassed of liking things too much, like, or like liking the wrong stuff. And I feel like that's just a super like unhealthy thing that's accidentally grown into like the kind of more cool guy hardcore thing.
I'm getting a little bit older now. I'm almost hitting 30, so I just don't really think I have time for people that don't want to give you the same kind of time of day that you give them. If they judge you on something dumb like that, then I'll waste your time, man.
Yeah, and like I just adore people that are just 100% themselves. Like, even like I respect someone more that likes stuff that I don't like wholeheartedly than I do, you know, someone that just, you know, doesn't care about anything.
Yeah, yes, straight up. Like, it's so rare that it's not rare in hardcore, because in our hardcore community we have people that are so deep into this that we see that a lot. But in like the general population, there generally aren't people who are so deep into things and care so passionately about things.
Funny,
whereas in
like,
hardcore there is.
Yeah, it's funny when like you realize how deep down like the rabbit hole of a thing you are, like when you try and talk to someone that doesn't even know anything about it.
Yeah.
It's like I'm
doing a zine at the moment, and I was writing something like almost word for word what you just said. Like, it's hard to articulate what hardcore is and when you're so deep into it, and try to like describe it to people and the feeling it gives you and the reason why you do these weird things that they've never seen before, like stage dive or like fucking two-step or something.
Yeah, fully. It's like I think the example I had that popped into my head like a while ago was like, I'm so deep into this now that I can pick out, you know, who has a good mosh style. Like, I appreciate certain mosh styles over others, and like the fact that you know, like any random person would, you know, like the whole comments of like people doing karate dancing and like, you know, people that just don't get it. Like, whereas I think you're probably the same, like where it's been like 10 years or whatever, and you're just like, yeah, that's sick and that's goofy, and like this guy's obviously new and that dude's like a pro, you know, like just of them like throwing kicks and stuff. I think that's so funny.
Yeah, and I still sit closer to the goofy side because I'm uncoordinated.
But I think that's so funny too. Like, there's those people that you know, go to shows that just have that one thing they do weird as fuck. Like, a few of my mates that just have the weirdest two steps, but like they just rep it and it's sick. You know. There was this dude, like, where like I grew up on the South Coast, there was this dude that would always, like, instead of like two-stepping to one side and then, you know, doing like a punk jump and two-stepping back, he'd always like two-step backwards after getting to the other side, and it was the weirdest thing.
That's such a unique thing.
But I think it's so funny, and like I've just never really seen anyone else do that.
Get your own style, like, yeah, that's it though. That's what it's about to me.
And there fully is different styles. Like, when, like, I feel like the coast, like the side to side type thing, like they, you know, like really like lift their legs up and they just do like this weird goofy walk thing, where, and then like, you know, different places have their own little things that they do. And the fact that that we even noticed that.
That's what I'm trying to do with No Peace. Whenever we play, I want people to start doing like actual pylons, because that's something that hardcore here is missing.
Yeah.
Like, if you know every line to a song, jump on someone's back, like fucking wrestle for the mic, fight for it. Like, you want to see that chaos. You want to see that, like, that energy when you're at a hardcore show.
There's nothing like jumping on
we
people.
found that with Hurricane Fest. There was so much room that we had, like, the front, we had about 3 or 4 people deep at the front that were like wanting to sing along and like jump on each other, and then we'd have a pit at the back, and then it would just become this one big melee, and then it would go back to separated. It was real cool.
Just like a funny thing that I noticed earlier was on like the link tree, like the all-in link tree, there's a Napster link, and I just thought that was hilarious.
A what?
Napster? I might be wrong. And maybe I saw something.
What the fuck is that?
Like the one that like Metallica sued for like having the free downloads, like in the 90s or whatever.
There you go. Most of the all-in stuff I don't actually set up on, like, online.
Okay, like like one of the other dudes does it.
So this is news to me too. Brendan, who's the vocalist for All In, he's cheeky. He sets up random stuff like that sometimes.
Had you run shows much before, like, getting back into, like, doing this stuff? I guess, so how many years have you done Hurricane Fest now?
So last year we put it on. We didn't name it Hurricane Fest. It was just, like, skate park show, free skate park show. It was just all Adelaide bands.
So then, like, this year was the first, like,
but then this year I was like, let's make something out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, make it official and shit.
Had you run like many just like other regular shows before that, or just like this was kind of out of necessity, like putting the shows on and learning how to do it?
It was my first one, out of necessity kind of thing. Last year's show was the first one that I've run.
Yeah.
And then the first actual venue show I've ever put on was the Allxin 5-year anniversary, which is in June this year.
Yeah.
And then this last Hurricane Fest show that we just played, that's the latest one I've done.
Yeah, sick. Well, that's cool. Like too, like I guess without having
it's
any
all pretty
experience.
new to me, man. It's a big learning curve.
Yeah, I mean, like I put a handful of shows on and like helped put some shows on when I was like younger, you know, like really sloppily, like with absolutely no experience. And then like did a few more.
That's
like
way to do it.
Yeah, like I mean, it's been. I guess that was one of the things too that I found a bit weird. Like I guess just the South Coast at the time when I started going to shows was not like, you know, like it was that sort of thing I mentioned before of like they felt like a bit polished. They didn't want to do too much like rough stuff, you know, like doing like not stuff that wasn't really perfectly done. And I started going to like hardcore shows and I was like, fuck, let's just put on like as much shit as we can. Like I'll try and book shows or whatever, like for my mates' bands. And I think, yeah, it was a bit weird because like a few people were just like, you know, like this just seems dumb. Like you're just, you know, doing like silly shit. Like I guess I can understand why it would have looked weird at the time. I was just like a kind of new jack trying to do as much as I could because I was enjoying it.
But that's the thing, man. No one can fault you for just being passionate and just doing it. That's awesome. We need more people like that as opposed to the ones sitting back just judging you and being a fucking dickhead. Just being like, oh, you're doing it wrong. Like, whose standard are you holding everyone else to? Just let people do their thing. Let them give to something that's bigger than just themselves, you know?
Yeah. I'm actually pretty excited to, you know, like maybe have a crack at doing shows again now that I'm like back in Sydney and there's not a whole lot going on for the genres that like I like. There's a couple of people, like even like friends of mine that book shows, but more on the, like unify band type side of stuff. Whereas like there's not a whole lot going on for, like, I mean, we've got bands. I mean, there's like Last Ride, you know, like it's in Newcastle, but they also like, you know, do those shows with like Speed and stuff, which is cool. But there's also like smaller bands.
They're really good. They're an asset.
Yeah. So I'm excited to have a crack because I want to do a same sort of thing. Like I want to find somewhere around here that we can do those kind of DIY shows. But I think that like just seeing, I guess you do it in Adelaide is kind of like got me excited to just do it again. So I appreciate
that's awesome, man. That makes me feel really good. So I'm glad that we could kind of inspire someone else to just give it a shot.
Yeah,
but you're gonna do it. You're gonna do it way better than us. So you got this.
Yeah, I just like I really hope like just people being excited to go to shows again, like after the lockdowns and stuff, will just get people excited to do stuff raw and like just get it done.
Yeah, and that's what I found as well. I found that people just want to do something.
Yeah. And there's some cool bands popping up. Like there's like one of my mates started a new band called Mauler, which is like kind of like just like hardcore stuff. I don't think they've released anything yet, but it's like, you know, some of the dudes are in Ill Natured as well.
I've heard of them. Yeah, I've seen them on Instagram.
Yeah, I think they kind of like announced they were playing some shows like coming up soon, like in the last week or two. And then like I've got like a band that I'm working on and stuff, and like I guess, you know, like Speed is still doing really well.
Get it out, get it done.
Yeah. So you hadn't really booked shows before. Had you like done many other bands before? Like, because it's like Allxin's like about 5 years old now. Was that like one of the first bands that you sort of did?
Yeah, Allxin was the first successful like band. Successful in like a local way. I played in a band before that didn't really go anywhere and just fell apart to infighting, as most bands do.
Yeah.
So 2016 is where I really started to be like, all right, I have to make this happen myself. I can't just sit around and like wait for people to do shit. Like I need to make it happen.
Yeah.
So I think kind of clicks as you get a little bit older.
Yeah, for sure.
You realize that you can't rely on anyone else.
Yeah. Like,
sounds very depressing.
So, I can't remember. You play guitar in Allxin?
Yeah, I play guitar. Yeah.
Do you only play guitar? I feel like one of them. I feel like you do vocals, or am I wrong?
I'm vocals for No Peace, and I do guitar for Humanxerror, Allxin, and there's a few other side projects I'm doing at the moment where I'm writing and playing guitar. Yeah, and sick. Another one where I'm doing vocals as well.
Oh, sick! Yeah.
My theory is if I write enough shit music and throw it at a wall, something will stick.
Something will stick. I mean, like, all of the bands are doing, like, reasonably well. I think, like, the amount of, like, I mean, I think the way that you're going about things, like just trying to like boost shit up, like with the shows and the skate park shows and stuff, is like really helping like boost the bands, because like that's like, I mean, not in a way like that's more important, but I mean like that's what I hear people talk about the most at the moment. People are like, oh, like have you seen those skate park shows?
But you are right. It is more important than any individual. It's got to be about the collective, and it's got to be about all the bands sharing success, right? So if one band makes it in whatever definition you want to kind of define, like they want to share that, they want to actually give what they've learned to people that are like around them in their local scene, because it's not about anyone in particular, it's about all of us. Well, that's my thinking. I don't know if everyone agrees, but
yeah. I guess you played guitar first. Like, when was that like around the same time? Did you just kind of like start playing guitar and then was like, all right, let's do a band, like immediately?
I started learning guitar before anything, man. But my dad's been playing guitar his entire life, and he's the best guitarist I've ever seen. He's just insane. So he just had these like sick guitars hanging around the house, and stuff that I totally took for granted as a kid. Like we had a 74 custom Les Paul, Les Paul just sitting, and I was like just hacking at it as I was like fucking 9 years old trying to play guitar.
It's funny, like you
fully been pretty lucky with dad.
Yeah, I can imagine like at the time just not even like understanding like the value and like how cool that is, and then like as you get older,
$10,000 guitar, man, just sitting in a 9-year-old's bedroom.
Yeah, that's so sick.
Trying to play Green Day to it.
Yeah. Yes, as you get older, like you realize when people trust you with stuff like that, like whether it was like your dad or like a mate or whatever, like how much trust they put in you for that kind of thing, like just to not like ruin it too.
Yeah, people you give young people room to breathe and room to create without judgment or without any kind of like restrictions, and they're gonna do something cool with it, and that kind of comes full circle back to Hurricane Fest. Like, I always want to put on new bands, and I always want to put on young bands and have young kids come out and see what they can do if they want, if they've got this space to grow and learn.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of there's a bass player called Victor Wooten. I don't know if you know who that is. He's like a bass virtuoso or whatever, but I watched some stuff about him talking about learning music, and he was like replying to questions, and someone said like, I'm always like embarrassed or scared to like jam with like professional musicians because I'm not very good. And he was like, you have to have like the fully exact opposite like feeling, because like that's how you learn, is by like trying to, it's like the same as talking. It's like if when you're a kid, you try and talk to adults that know how to talk. Like if you play music with people that know how to play music, then that's how you're going to grow. And it sort of applies to the social stuff too. Like if you don't,
very, very important. I totally agree with that. You just need to get outside your comfort zones. Like nothing I've ever done that things that I've achieved have always pushed me outside of my comfort zones, and that's just a great example of it. You just need to put yourself outside, just make shit happen.
Do you have like a career in particular, like that you do for work, or has it just kind of been like things to sort of support you, like doing what you want to do? Like with music, has that kind of been like your main sort of focus for the last, I guess like 5 or so years?
The last probably 4 or 5 years I've been working for one company just at a game store, so just doing like nerdy board games, that kind of shit. Which is amazing. Like that's my other side thing that I love.
Yeah, that just actually reminded me, because I mentioned to my friend that I was like going to chat to you, and he's like, I think I talked to him one time. He was like a hell Warhammer and like kind of dude. Like I think we talked about Warhammer one time.
Yeah, straight up, man.
Yeah. Sick.
So that's where I work on the side as well. Yeah, I work for Games Workshop.
Yeah, sick. That's cool. And like, I mean, that's a sick job too. Like
definitely people like a job that like I don't stress when I'm at work. I can just enjoy it, and then when I leave work, it's like I've got no residual stress or like anything negative towards work, so I can really focus on all these like passions I've got outside of work, like playing footy or fucking hardcore or whatever.
Like, you played sport most of your life sort of thing as well, like doing footy and stuff? I feel like that's sort of something you tend to do, like, because you did it as a kid and stuff.
I never played footy as a kid. I played every single sport, like going through school.
Yeah.
And then I just never played for any clubs or anything, which I was really disappointed that my parents didn't force me to. But then I came to like 22 years old, and I was like, fuck this, I'm going to join a footy club. And the guy, Matt Footy Horvath, who owns Clarity Records, he plays for the club that I play for now, and he like roped me in and got me to go and play with him. So I've been playing there for like 4 years, and yeah, it's been sick. It's again like learnt awesome like leadership things from the club and stuff that like you apply to other areas of your life, like hardcore, and like being like someone who wants to kind of push the hardcore community further. Like, you learn these really cool leadership traits from those guys. So no matter where you are in life, man, you're always learning shit. You're playing the parts.
Yeah, that's cool. Like, I guess I see like a little bit of overlap, you know, like with sport and like hardcore. I guess probably a little bit more so, like even in, I mean, I guess we'd be the same generation, but like that little bit older than me, like a lot of the dudes, like I know some of the dudes are in like Staunch, like Mitch Whaley, like plays footy. I think some of the dudes that were in Endless, if I'm not wrong, played like
He's
footy.
He's a good dude, real smart guy.
It was super important too, like especially when I was like first going to shows, like he was like a super important kind of like person, you know, like he ran like Hombre, like the record and like the record label, like, and the venue, and like, you know, Staunch was doing really well. Like Staunch is still one of my favorite like Australian bands.
Yeah, man.
And he was just a legend. Like, he was heaps on that thing of what we were talking about before, of like showing people stuff that were younger. Like, I was, you know, I'm like a fair bit younger than Mitch, and like, you know, he would show me bands, like even not even hardcore bands, like Chino XL. I don't know if you listen to much hip hop, but he showed me like Chino XL and like some cool like hip hop stuff, because he was really into that. You know, like I've stayed at his house a bunch of times, like on tours, and also like just, you know, him just like having me there, like, and just hanging out.
I think that's that hardcore ethic, right? Like the values of hardcore, like special.
Yeah, like I remember a couple of years ago there was like this real like younger dude that you know, I'm not sure like how they met. I think it might have been through work or something. Like this real young dude that I think he had like some, you know, like disability, but he was like really interested in going to hardcore shows, and like he used to come with Mitch all the time. Like Mitch would bring him to shows, and they'd like, you know, hang out, and he'd like help.
That is amazing.
Yeah, so
that's
cool.
So awesome.
And
that reminds me, we kind of like brushed over it earlier when you asked me what I do for work. But before I worked for Games Workshop, I was doing disability support work, and
oh yeah, cool.
There was like disability support work, so there was a lot of like kind of early teenagers that would be kind of into heavy music, but needed that kind of like push in the direction. So I would show them like Terror and Down to Nothing and these hardcore bands.
Yeah.
And there's a few of them that came out to shows as well. So yeah, it's real cool.
Yeah, it's sick. I think like I find quite a lot of overlap with like you know, like mental health or disability support work, or like even like you know, like one of my mates does like, you know, like Aboriginal support work, and it's like I find a lot of that overlaps like with I actually have a few mates that do like Aboriginal work as well, but it's like so much, because it's a job that they all care about, you know, like it's kind of that thing I was saying, like we tend to be more like compassionate people, I guess. I
agree. Yeah, I agree a lot, man. So many people that work in like where I used to work for the Disability Support Agency, they were into punk or hardcore, and I think it just comes down to like the ethics of this music. It's more community, and it's more like social justice, and there's more more compassionate values around people who love this music, and they obviously go out into the world and they work similar jobs where they use that compassion and those values to make a living. Oh yeah, my dog was just barking. We got some furniture that we're getting delivered, so I may need to bounce. I'm very sorry to cut
that's sweet. Yeah, I mean like we've been chatting for ages now. Like I was just still kind of riffing. I had like stuff I deliberately wanted to talk about. Yeah, we'll have to have another chat sometime in the future. I'm sure we could keep talking for ages.
Yeah, man. I'm up for it anytime, dude. And like, yeah, just stoked. We've obviously got a friendship. We can fucking hang out at shows whenever we play shows in Sydney. And
yeah, we'll have to. Well, when I start, if I can get into finding somewhere to book some hardcore shows, I'll get one, or I'll just book all 3 of your bands, save you some money, and we'll do them all at once.
All at once, thanks, man. Yeah.
Sick. All right. Well, it was good to I guess kind of meet you, have a chat.
Yeah, man. This was sick. This was really sick. Thanks so much for having me, dude. I really appreciate you giving me this like platform to talk my boring shit on. Sick, man. All right. Yeah, we'll talk soon. We'll do this another time. I'm always down.
Sick. All right. I'll catch you later.